This summer has been full of memories so far. I have been spending so much time outside, with friends, enjoying the weather and fleeing the heat whenever possible. The 12 Birds Shawl by Helen Stewart has been my constant knitting work-in-progress companion on my adventures, since this pattern is both gorgeous and easy to knit. It came along on hikes, day trips, and even to public viewings of football games of the European Championship. If you need any further testimony on how well written and easy to follow this pattern is, let it be said that I was very distracted by the football final and enjoyed several great cocktails while knitting on it, and it still came out beautifully. So now I have a beautiful shawl that will keep me warm during the chilly evenings of autumn, imbued in the memories of a summer well lived. Hello and welcome back to Down the Forest Path, a seasonal knitting podcast coming to you from southern Germany with a huge pitcher of elderflower lemonade that I will hopefully drink off quite liberally during this podcast, because it is 33 degrees Celsius today, and as most parts of Central Europe we don't have air conditioning, so I'm kind of dying, and I hope there's going to be a thunderstorm soon and then this heat wave will hopefully be over. But I do have some knitting to share with you today, and I would say without further ado, let's just dive right into it. If you watched my last podcast episode, then you will remember I was knitting on a shawl and I wasn't too far in with that. And I can now report that in record speed, the shawl just flew off my needles and it is finished. So let me show it to you. Here it is in all of its glory. This is the 12 Birds Shawl by Helen Stewart. And this is a half circle, half pie shawl. So what does that mean? I mean, half circle is kind of like self-explanatory. It just means that the shape of the shawl is a half circle, and half pie shawl means that the shawl is constructed in a way that orients itself by the number pi, and that determines when the stitches in this shawl are going to increase to create this beautiful shape. So if you do lace knitting and you've never knit a half pie shawl, then you're probably used to doing your little increases at the end of each row, so you have kind of like a more gradual increase over time. Whereas if you're knitting a half pie shawl, then you have an actual increase round every once in a while, and that kind of instantly doubles your stitches, because you go knit one, yarn over through the whole row, and you have a few of these rows in the shawl. So for example, let me find one in this here, because the first one will come right after a few rounds. So if you look up here, you can see I've got a round where I've made quite a lot of yarn overs, and that is the increase round, and these increase round each double your stitches, and that leads to this very beautiful lace knit item where you do not have to steadily increase, but you only increase every once in a while and then very rapidly. Don't ask me about the physics of it and why it lies flat, because that's the thing I could not wrap my head around, because for me, I thought if I increase quite so suddenly, it's just going to kind of like pucker, but it does not. It's perfect. So it really works, and I will put it on so you can kind of get a better idea of what it looks like. One around my shoulders. So, as is possibly quite easy to tell from my facial expression, I'm delighted with this. I'm really happy with this. I think it turned out beautifully, and I love wrapping it around my shoulders in principle. Not today, because it's 33 degrees and I am suffering, but in principle, I think this is a lovely, lovely, lovely garment, and I cannot wait for colder days in autumn where I can just lean back in an armchair with a book and this shawl just around my shoulders, feeling like a proper Jane Austen character or something, with a cup of tea and my knitting needles. And I know these days are only like 2 months off and I just have to make it through the rest of summer first. But up until then, I will admire this from a little bit of a distance and possibly get it out on like some cold summer evenings, because you know we get those every once in a while. So let me tell you a little bit more about this shawl. It is made from 600 to 800 meters of fingering weight yarn, and it is inspired by the arts and craft movement. So think William Morris, for example. If you don't know who William Morris is, I actually think I have a few postcards in my drawer that were designed by him. Like, I don't mean they were designed by him, but he designed the patterns that were then printed on these postcards. So let me just have a quick look and see if I can find them for you. I did find them. Took a minute of searching, but I did. And I forgot I had half used them up. So I can't show you that many different patterns, but I think the ones that I can show you will give you a good enough idea. I also found, again, I had forgotten about this tiny, teensy, tiny little hobbit door. Let me hold it up closer. That I had embroidered and painted ages ago, and I still think it's so cute, so I'll have to find a place for it, because I remember I put it away when I got the little cats, because they tried to eat the beads that were on it, and it was not recommendable. But back to the topic and William Morris. So this is my William Morris postcard set, and you can see on the red sticker it was 50% off, so I was really happy about this find. And it had some postcards and envelopes in it to send them off. And I have 2 patterns still here that I can show you. So if you look at this one, you can kind of see the very distinct like vines that are kind of going through it, and with the flowers. And Morris himself, he was closely associated with the pre-Raphaelite art movement, which is a movement of art that I really enjoy looking at. So it's not a huge surprise that I love these patterns as well. And I think this might be the most famous one. If I remember correctly, then this is the Strawberry Thief, but I might be wrong about that, in which case I think English people in the comments, please correct me, but I think this is it. So you can see here there are some birds on a blue background, and they're sitting in a kind of like hedge full of flowers. And then you see this cheeky one here who has gotten a tiny little strawberry in his beak, and he is about to take off with it, and that's why it's named the Strawberry Thief. So that's a little bit of an idea what William Morris stuff might kind of look like to you. If you didn't know before anyway, I think he's quite famous, but just in case, I thought it was still worth sharing. And this shawl pattern is inspired by this movement of art. So it features really beautiful floral motifs. And as we know with knitting, things are often a little bit more abstract, so you have to kind of know what you're looking for. But if you take a look at the beginning here, let me hold it against a lighter background, and you can see there are these kind of scalloped flower petals that the shawl kind of starts with, and it then goes over into these little kind of like spreading vines that are going around, and then it ends in the 12 birds that the shawl is named for. So down here there are some knit birds that you can kind of recognize. They're quite abstract, and they are going around the border of the shawl here and flying and taking off. So this is the 12 birds shawl, because it's a half circle, so it had space for 12 of them. If you do really want to indulge in quite a bit of lace knitting, then you do have the option to instead knit the 24 birds shawl, which is the full circle version, and that was originally released at a mystery knit along a few months ago, and the 12 birds I think there were some like cries for a half circle version, and Helen Stewart ever so kindly indulged us, and that's the one that I decided to make because I am lazy. No, because I think a half circle shawl sits very well on my shoulders. I'm super short, so it's kind of nice to feel like you're not really like drowning in a garment, and that's what I get when I make a smaller half circle shawl. And I often feel a little bit overwhelmed if I have like a huge shawl or a round shawl around me. So that's why I decided to go for the half circle version of it. Helen Stewart herself also has a podcast on YouTube. It's called Curious Handmade. And I saw that she is uploading quite a few tutorials there. So if you're interested, then check it out and have a look at it. She also has, I think, over 100, maybe even over 150 patterns on Ravelry. A lot of them are for shawls, but she also has a lot of cowls. I saw a lot of socks, hats, everything really. So if you do like the style of this, but you would not really want to make an entire huge shawl, then do have a look at her Ravelry store. I saw that she also has 4 free patterns on Ravelry. So if you're not sure about if you like the way that she writes pattern, which I really did, then you can also check out one of the free patterns first. And something else I also really liked is that she has a little pattern collection that's called, I think, Advents and Minis or something like that. So it's specifically made for using up these little mini skeins that all of us knitters tend to accumulate over the years. It's just kind of a rule of knitting, and I don't know why, but it just is. We all end up with way too many mini skeins. And these Advent patterns offer really cute ways to use them up in shawls. I think she had like 1 or 2 shawls, scarves, and cowls, and I saw especially one of the cowls was super pretty. So if you do have leftovers from your last Advent or from the last time you went to a wool fair and brought back way too many mini skeins, then do have a look at it, and I'm sure you'll find something that you like. So for my case, in fact, I used up a lot of minis on this, and I think I should tell you a little bit about the yarn. So these are mostly minis, and all of this yarn is from Meadowyarn. Meadowyarn is a small UK company. They're from Suffolk, and they dye yarn in their studio. It's all super pretty. It's incredibly gorgeous. And they had this mini skein collection called A Skein Full of Sky. I think they still have a little bit of that. So I think they still offer like a permanent collection, which is 4 of these skeins, not all of the colors, but some. But I, at the time, got this huge set of the minis, and I think it was like 8 or 10 minis, maybe even 12, I'm not sure anymore. But they were all extremely pretty, and they were depicting the sky in different seasons through the year and different moods, different weathers. So I really like this because it has kind of like a strong nature connection, which I always really like. But for a long time I was kind of not super sure what to make with these minis. And then this knit along came up, and at the time I didn't want to knit the shawl straight away because I'd just come out of another mystery knit along, which was the Boon Knits knit along, which yielded an incredibly pretty shawl as well, which I'm still also super happy with. But I was like, okay, I think I need a few projects where I actually know what I'm making and know what I'm doing before I jump right back into making something where I don't know what the outcome will look like. So I did not go with this straight away when the pattern was released, but then they kept kind of popping up on my Instagram, on my Ravelry, and then Wool&Pine knitted one as well. I really like watching her podcast sometimes, and I saw hers and it was so pretty. I think actually Helen Stewart designed the pattern with Wool&Pine's yarn in mind, but that's kind of hard for me to get hold of because I am in the EU. So you pay a lot of import tax for yarns from the US. And Meadowyarn was right on my doorstep, and I also still had a lot of these minis that I had already purchased. And I think I might have gotten them just before Brexit, or I might have brought them back from the UK from visiting my in-laws. But in any way, these are the minis that I got, and it took me quite a long time to decide on which yarn to use for this and in which order. And thankfully, some of you really did help me, because I put a poll on Instagram and so many of you were so kind to vote on the different options I put in there. And this was the one that won. And actually, I was super skeptical on that at first, because it was kind of my least favorite at the time, because I thought this purple would be kind of a bit too harsh. But I looked at the poll options and two of them were quite close together. Let me see if maybe I can put pictures here so you can get an idea. If yes, then I'm just going to put a picture now and talk for a few seconds so you can have a look at it. But yeah, these were the options, and two of them were quite close together. So I looked at like all of the votes and stuff, and I was like, okay, well, they really want this purple. I should probably go with that. And then I saw that my mom had also voted, and my mom had also voted for the purple. And I do not go against the color recommendations from my mother, because she has a very good taste for color, and if she says it will work, then it will work. So I went with that. And as you can see, I had this really nice gray yarn up here to start it with. Then it went over into a more variegated gray, and then into a blue, and then it went into this nice sunset orange, and then eventually into the nice purple, the dark purple. I think this colorway, this was the only one I had a full skein of, is called an accidental glimpse, in case you do want to check it out. Let me hold it close so you get a better idea. So that is the story of the shawl and of these mini skeins. The yarn quality of these minis is called Pytil or Pigtail, I don't know how to pronounce it properly, and it's a classic fingering weight yarn at 400 meters for 100 gram. So if you're looking for a nice fingering weight yarn for a shawl, maybe you're already kind of starting to be proactive and thinking about your winter and Christmas knits or holiday knits, then I would recommend checking out the website if you like colorful yarns, because it's full of these extremely pretty different colors. And I know I'm holding this up a lot because I myself keep looking at it because I'm so happy with it. The way I interchanged these colors, maybe I should briefly talk about that. So in the pattern, there is kind of like a color sequencing given for using different colors. You can also make this in one color, it would still be gorgeous, but if you want to use different colors, then there are options, and it's clearly explained how to best do it in the pattern. I did not follow that at all, because I knew that I had all of these 20 gram skeins, and a lot of the colors that I would have used for it would have needed, like, I think 30 to 40 grams each. So I knew I didn't have enough. So what I did was I just knit until a color would almost run out, and then I would do one row in the next color, one row in the original color, then again one row in the next color and one row in the original, and then keep knitting in color 2. And that's how I went through the whole shawl, and I think sometimes you can see that quite clearly. I thought that would bother me, but it didn't. Let me find here. Here, for example, you can see quite clearly that I did a bit in this color, then in that, and then in the first one again. And I thought that would bother me, but it actually didn't. I think it's super pretty. I've always admired like fade shawls, and I've never made one. And now this is my little version of it. Before before I go, I forgot I should briefly talk about the pattern with you. So I really did like this pattern. I think it's excellent and it would be a good pattern to start for people who have knitted a few lace patterns. So if you're an adventurous beginner, then don't shy away from this, because the the stitch repeats are actually not so many stitches that it's difficult to keep an overview, and a lot of them have these really clear columns running through that I think I often made, if I remember correctly, from a like slip 2 knit 1 past the slip stitches over or something like that. But anyway, it makes these clear lines and it's very geometrical, so you easily recognize when you're off, which is great if you're a beginner, because it can be really hard to tell if you've made a mistake or if it's just a pattern if you don't know yet how to really read your charts. But with this it should be quite simple. Also creates this beautiful texture in the shawl that I like. The pattern does warn you not to use stitch markers, because the stitch markers do repeatedly move and it doesn't necessarily indicate when they do, and that's true. I did use stitch markers because I'm a stickler for stitch markers. I am a rule breaker with other things, but not with my stitch markers, and they did move quite a lot. I did not actually find it that annoying as the pattern was saying, but if you do not like moving your stitch markers around, then you probably shouldn't actually use any for this, because in hindsight it probably wouldn't have been necessary for me to use them. The pattern is so clear and the structure of the pattern pieces is so clear that you should be able to recognize which stitch goes above which other stitch without needing stitch markers. So if you're maybe wanting to experiment not using stitch markers for the first time, this would also be a good pattern for that. For me, I moved stitch markers a lot, but the fact that this pattern was so clear also made it incredibly easy to recognize where the stitch markers had to move to keep it consistent. The pattern is beautifully done with some pictures, it's charted, it's written out, and you can really basically not ask for a clearer pattern. The only issue that I had, and that's completely on me because I can be a little bit chaotic in my free time, is that some charts you have to repeat, but you don't necessarily have to repeat them one after the other. So you see these row counters and it's like 30, 31, 32, 33, 34, okay. And then there's a column next to it. And if you do not pay attention, you don't see that it doesn't say 35 down there, so where it would continue, it says 52, because you're actually supposed to knit the other chart first. And that's where I messed up once or twice, because I did not pay enough attention to the line counts, and I should have. That's completely on me, but just fair warning, if you do knit this and if you're a bit like me and you're knitting in a little bit of a scatterbrained way while sitting next to friends, having fun, like I did with the shawl I knitted during the Euro Cup a lot, and so I was out, I was having a few drinks and knitting at the same time, so that's how these mistakes happen. But just to give you that warning, do pay attention to the line counts, and that's the only difficulty you will encounter with the shawl. So that is the 12 Birds Shawl by Helen Stewart. Here I am after a tiny little break with my new cast on, the Willow Wisp top by Wool&Pine. So here it is. Let me try and... So I put it on different needles for you, so you would kind of be able to get a better idea, but it seems like it's just pulling down in the back and not being super clear. But you can see I have the top part done, and now I'm going into this cute little lace part that's part of the pattern. It's down here, and I'll have to do 2.5 repeats of that, and then I'm already basically finished. So it's a bit uneven right now because it's knit in pure silk, and it is not blocked, obviously, so it's not quite as pretty as it normally is. But I hope you can kind of get a little bit of an idea, and it doesn't just look like a holy mess to you right now. I have some thoughts already on this, but I will kind of limit how much I'm saying about the pattern before I've actually finished it, because I feel like I can't really give like a fair overview or review before I've finished it. So far it's extremely well written, it's extremely clear. For me, I'm angry with myself because, so you know me, I never gauge swatch ever. I never do that little thing, that cute little square that tells you if you're off with your needles, if you should go to a smaller needle size or not. I am not the kind of person who does that, but I did for this. I did actually use the cup here as a gauge swatch, because I just knitted and I thought, okay, by the point it has like a little bit there, then I should be able to tell. And I was. And my gauge was actually quite good, because I had preemptively gone down a needle size or two needle sizes, because I know myself and I'm quite a loose knitter. And my gauge was 10% more stitches in 10 centimeters than it should have been. So since I was between two sizes, I was like, okay, then I'm just going to knit the bigger one of those two, so it's not turning out too small. But it's huge. I don't know how this ended up happening, but it's way too big for me for now. Like, I don't mean it's objectively huge or anything like that, but like compared to the measurements that I thought I was going to get, this is probably a good 50% bigger. I guess you can kind of maybe see now, but it just seems like it would be too big for the size I was intending to knit, and my gauge swatch indicated I should knit, and I don't know where I went wrong with it. I have a few ideas on how to fix it later on, as strange as that might sound. And I will keep you updated on how this is going, because you know me, I'm incredibly stubborn. I will power through with this, and I'm not redoing it, because we accept that things are not perfect and power through a lot on this channel, even when we should probably give up, rip back. But sunk cost fallacy is probably my middle name, and I'm going to stick this out. Anyway, if it goes completely off the rails, and that's what I always do with sweaters and tops and anything that needs gauge, hats and stuff like that, I have friends and family that come in all shapes and sizes, and whatever I end up with, I usually find someone who's very happy to take it off my hands. So this might not stay with me if it doesn't fit me, but I'm sure it will find someone who will lovingly care for it, especially since this is pure silk. It's made in pure silk. It is the Knitting for Olive pure silk, and it's in the colorway Cardamom. It should need 2 balls max of this. Ball 1 is almost finished, ball 2 is here, and that's the only balls I have of it, because it came out of my stash, because this is a stash busting problem. It's a bit of a problem right now, but it shouldn't be in the future. So it's a stash busting project for me, same as my lovely shawl was, and I hope that it's going to work out nicely, and I will keep you updated on it. I love Knitting for Olive, but I've said it before and I will say it again. Knitting for Olive pure silk is not my favorite to knit with. It is beautiful, it is environmentally friendly, it is Oecotech standard, so it's suitable for baby clothes as far as I'm aware. Don't nail me on this, look it up yourself, but I think that's what it means. It's barrette silk, so the little caterpillars actually get to hatch out of their cocoons and they get to be free and live their caterpillar life. I guess when they hatch they don't get to live their caterpillar lives because they're actually butterflies, but they get to live their moth/butterfly life a bit, and they don't get boiled to death as they do with normal silk. So this is great. This is a great product from that point of view, but it's so splitty. This is the most splitty yarn I've worked with, and I've knit with so many cheap yarns like Drops, Hobby, whatever. The only yarn that comes close to this level of splittiness are the Hobby gradient things, like the cotton ones, the like really splitty cotton yarn. So this is as splitty as really splitty cotton yarn, and oh god, I don't always look at my hands when I'm knitting, and then I look after a row and I'm like, oh my god, I split the yarn again. I don't know how that happened. So it's not a super fun knitting experience for me, especially when I'm looking away because I'm watching something on YouTube or the TV in parallel. But I mean, it's still beautiful. The finished projects, they always look pretty. But yeah, so that is what I'm working on at the moment, and I hope I will have this finished by the next episode. Famous last words, but I hope, because there's not so much more to do, that this is going to be done, and then I can show it to you because I'm excited about that. As for acquisitions, there were none. I'm still being very good with my yarn hiatus, because actually there are a few things coming up where I definitely will be buying yarn, so I've kind of put myself a bit on a no-buy zone, and I'm sticking to it very well so far, and I'm just knitting from my stash. And I mean, my stash had like yarn in for 10 projects to go or something like that, and even more shawl yarns. There's not actually someone here that's more of my woolly yarns, but there were so many that I still wanted to do stuff with that I don't need to buy anything. But I thought, since we were talking about Meadowyarns earlier, Meadowyarn, no S, I would show you some of the Meadowyarn yarn that is in my yarn collection instead of talking about acquisitions, because it kind of still fits in the same slot, and I thought they were very pretty. So these are 2 minis that I still have from them, and I just really do like that color distribution. And then there are 2 bigger skeins. This one I don't have the tag for anymore, but it's quite a distinctive color combination. So if you look at their website, you will not have difficulties finding it. And I know that this is also the Pytel yarn quality, so it's fingering weight, and it's 400 meters per 100 gram. Isn't it so pretty? I think this is a little bit too variegated for me to make it into a shawl, but for weaving, for example, I do really love this. And then we have maybe the most pretty of all. This is the Burden of Dreams Pytel yarn. It's also fingering weight, and it has this gorgeous kind of teal colors in it that go up into orangey browns, pinks, some blues in there, some kind of like blackberry colors, and it's so pretty. It doesn't actually come out on camera. Their website does it more justice, I would say. Just check it out on there. But yeah, if you're looking for some nature-inspired pretty yarns from the UK, then look no further. Meadowyarn. Based on personal experience, I can really recommend it. I never had any issues with their shipping or anything like that. They've always been super quick to ship out. They ship in sustainable packaging, which I really appreciate. And I think they even have something for everyone who is also in the EU. If you order up until a value of 150 euros, they automatically calculate your VAT and you pay it when you check out. So it then gets imported without additional taxes, as far as I'm aware, which makes purchasing from them a lot easier, because you know you're not going to be cycling out to some customs office at the end of nowhere to pick up your yarns. Yeah, so give it a look, and that's basically it from my side at this time. I hope I'll see you very soon. I hope you enjoyed this video, and if you do have any recommendations for top knitting patterns, because I think I'm a bit on a streak of top knitting right now because it's so warm, then let me know in the comments, because I'm looking for good patterns. Thank you so much for hanging out today. And if you like this video, then please don't forget to give it a thumbs up and maybe subscribe to this channel. And I will see you very soon.